And so if your executive team can't understand why you exist, how can you expect your customers, your supporters, your donors, your outside constituents to understand what you do and why you're there?
What are the secrets that drive the businesses you love or nonprofits you admire? Join us as we uncover the surprising ideas at the intersection of causes and brands. I'm Dave Raley.
And I'm Berna. Each episode, learn from leaders of nonprofits and companies that will give you insights that you can put into action. This is the Purpose and Profit Podcast. Season 6 of the Purpose and Profit Podcast is brought to you by Imago Consulting.
Welcome to the show today. Our guest is Kenny Jahng, a strategic advisor, pastor, and entrepreneur who spent his career helping mission-driven leaders cut through the noise and connect with the right audience. He's a digital agency founder and CEO, the director of AI at Exponential Next, as well as a StoryBrand certified guide, and has led campaigns for organizations like Biblica, American Bible Society, Redeemer Presbyterian Church. He's also got an MBA from Columbia Business School and an MDiv from Princeton University. Kenny brings this crazy combination of business savvy and nonprofit and ministry insight. So I think you're going to enjoy our conversation with Kenny Jahng today. Welcome, Kenny.
Oh, it's great to be here. Always have a blast whenever I'm bumping into you, Dave. Always.
Yeah, usually at some conference in Dallas or DC or wherever we are at that particular time.
Yes.
And increasingly so our friend Berna at those same events. So it's been fun.
Yes. Great to hear.
Well, hey, so just start, give us a bit about your background. And I'm really interested in one of the things we've talked about and geeked out on is this idea of building strategic clarity and engagement. So not to go geek right off the gate, Kenny, but tell us a little bit about your background. How did you get involved with helping organizations build strategic clarity, and what the heck does that mean in the first place?
So my career started in the marketplace. I worked at an ad agency. I worked in global PR, Fortune 100 brands, and that was very interesting to see the process of how organizations clarify their message in order to drive audience engagement. And then a lot of my work shifted toward faith-based organizations. And I saw the common struggle, organizations needing help to clarify their message. And one of the things that's different, I think, is organizations on the nonprofit ministry side typically need help cultivating raving fans for their mission, their purpose, right? Their objective that they're trying to galvanize the supporters and their base to. And one of the things that I think just has been a game changer when you do the work of analyzing who the winners and the not so winners are in the marketplace for ministries is clarity of message, just clarity of message. And so we looked at the work that we were doing, consulting all these organizations for, I think, about 12 or 13 years. We basically opened up the files and said, let's do some pattern recognition. What works, what doesn't? And we built this framework of communications to help clarify the message and drive audience engagement. And we live in an attention economy, and we need to figure out how to turn attention into meaningful engagement. And that's what our whole purpose is today, is how do we help these organizations take attention and turn it into meaningful engagement? How do we help them drive and cultivate raving fans for their mission?
You might have literally just explained this, but you said this framework, which I think is called the Art of Engagement framework. Like, what is this idea of the art of engagement?
Sure. When we've been coming into consulting engagements with these big organizations, national organizations, international organizations, and a lot of times what we see is work that's left behind from previous marketing teams or directors or other agencies that come in. And then the people at the helm at the current moment don't know why they're doing what they're doing. And we needed a way to explain in a simple, actionable framework of how do you become intentional with converting that intention to engagement. And so we came up with this thing called the Art of Engagement. There's 3 pillars, ART. A stands for you must first, square one, is establish your authority for what you do in front of your audiences. The R is you must demonstrate relevance, that you have something that the audience needs, that the supporter needs, that your mission needs. So relevance is really important. And the third one is you have to build trust with the right audiences. So authority, relevance, and trust, we focus on those three pillars. The great upside is at our disposal today, we have a lot of digital marketing tools and offline marketing tools to put together an integrated plan so that you're not just pulling together scattered messaging, but you're creating a unified, engaging, effective narrative that, again, just changes attention into participation and engagement. And isn't that what we all want? All brands want some sort of that version of that, right?
Yeah. Well, and when you think about that first pillar, that pillar of authority, I'm very curious as to, one, I want you to unpack a little bit of that, more specifically what that framework looks like. But when you think about that, Kenny, I think about the world you and I inhabit, and there's a lot of, I don't know, what phrase people want to use, the creator economy or thought leadership or whatever. There's a lot of that going on in the sort of, not just the personas, individuals who are authors or speakers, but in organizations. So, I mean, is that play into authority?
Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, you need to, whether you're in the business world, marketplace, or ministry world, you should have some sort of compelling reason why you exist, right? Your stakeholders, your shareholders need to understand that, right? And this is where the authority piece is. So, the first piece in the authority pillar is you have to explain to everybody why you exist. And then the second one is you have to show them what you actually do in order to knock that big, hairy goal down. And the third one is who's talking about you, who understands what you do so that they can become a reference point. So that first nugget, that why, is about purpose. It's about conviction. It's what compels your work beyond just the widgets or the products, the services that you offer. So what problem breaks your heart? Why does this matter? What's the thing what's the purpose of your organization? What problem are you here to solve uniquely that you can differentiate yourself against everybody else that says you are uniquely positioned to solve this problem?
Let's drill into the why a little bit more. So, okay, so how do you help organizations define that why? Like you just sort of threw a few things out there, but like let's get real concrete. And even, I mean, if you have an example that comes to mind, that's super helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. So, when we go through the process, we go through a whole, strategic discovery process. We try to help identify what's the deeper motivation that's driving them, whether it's a business or a nonprofit. Why are they in operations, right? What's compelling them to exist today? And most organizations have some mission statement, maybe printed on a plaque or a wall or someplace where it's in the HR handbook, but it's a vague inspiration. And what we need to do is we need to separate the prisoners. So this is one of the first exercises we do. We take the executive team, the leadership of the organization, and we give them a bunch of Post-it notes. Typically it's 10, and we number on the wall 1 through 10, Post-it numbers from 1 through 10, and we'll say, hey, Carly, you can't look at Dave's answers. Dave, you can't look at Carly's answers, and we're going to answer these questions. And we go down the path of asking some basic questions, and one of the reasons is what's the purpose? Why do you exist? How do we know when our purpose is fulfilled? Everyone on the executive team writes down their answers, and then we collate them, put the answers on the board, and we look back and we see just how unified everybody is, right, Dave? Everybody has written down exactly the same thing on every post.
Did I laugh too early?
Right? And surely we've had fights break out in that executive boardroom, right? We'd have leaders say, I can't believe you've been working with me, Dave, for 15 years and you still don't understand what we do, right? Like you have fights that break out because they're so passionate about what they do in different ways, but you're not on the same page. And so if your executive team can't understand why you exist, how can you expect your customers, your supporters, your donors, your outside constituents to understand what you do and why you're there, right? And that's where confusion happens. Confuse, you lose. And so this is why the why is so important. And so there's one specific exercise we'll go through to be able to pinpoint that why.
Well, and this is I think the important thing is, because I think, a lot of the, what's the Simon Sinek book about the why, that's such a popular topic, but for you started as the first element of authority. So why is why the first step of establishing authority?
Yeah, I think, I mean, again, it just makes sense that it's square one, right? Like our relationships are rooted in aligning ourselves with people that have the same convictions. And in marketing especially, your brand affinity, our association, and our ability to move closer to an organization or brand is all about alignment on that purpose. And so Simon Sinek, start with why, right? That is the one of the core beliefs. In order to get to that why, we draw on story brand a little bit, right? In the hero's journey that Don Miller's is constructed for story brand, there are 3 problems that you'll find in the story brand communications framework. There's an internal problem, an external problem, and a philosophical problem. And most organizations, they market on the external problem, right? Just the plain problem that they're trying to solve. But people buy on the internal problem that they're trying to solve in their head. How they feel, what their heart does. And that is determined by the philosophical problem. And that philosophical problem is this why. I like to say you need to articulate it and put a stake in the ground in a problem that is manifesto worthy. Otherwise, you're just a commodity in a sea of other people. And so what is that thing that's manifesto worthy that you can say that's your purpose, your cause, your belief that's out there? That why does this matter? There needs to be something where a stranger can walk up to you, understand why you exist, and say, you know what? That's a problem that needs to be solved, and I'm glad you're doing it, right? And so that's the reason why I think brands need to really nerd out on this first.
Yeah, I've been in some of those exercises like you just talked about. We did one where we asked our executive team who our audience was, and we all got different answers, unfortunately, which was the start of a branding exercise, which is why it was so important. But can you tell us what the second element of the authority pillar is, which I think is, so we just talked about the why, this is the what.
Yeah, there's the why, the what, and who. So the what is the second piece, and that is, what is the actual signature process that you actually offer to solve that manifesto problem? How are you tackling that problem? And hopefully, your organization does this on repeat, that it's not custom, it's not ad hoc, you don't make it up as you go every time, that you have some trademark way that you are providing value and that it's repeatable. I like to say you have to articulate this formula in a way that it has the confidence of a math equation. What do I mean by that? When I tell you, I'm selling you a formula that is 2 + 2 = 4, A + B = C, you don't have to shop around for another formula if you're looking for that type of equation. You just know it's going to work. My A plus my B is going to come out like C, just like I see in the TV commercial, A + B = C, right? Like we know that math, you don't need to shop around. You get rid of all your competitors. And so what is your process? What is your product? What's your service? How does it provide transformation in a place that's repeatable so that the prospect from afar can say with confidence, man, if I just use that process, if I just engage with them, if I just use their services, then I would see the same thing for myself. And so that's the what. We have to codify what we do and explain it in caveman simple terms. Avoid buzzwords, avoid insider language, aim for clarity so that you can say, we help this type of person do X so that they can do Y.
And how do you pull that out of an organization? Like, do you have an exercise, or how do you figure that out?
Yeah, so we call it the land of the smiley face post notes. So on one end of the wall in a conference room, I'll put up a note with a unhappy face, sad face, right? Draw a little sad face. And then hopefully it's a long wall in a long room. I mean, we've never had a wall that's long enough, to be very honest. And the other side, on the right-hand side, you would put a smiley face. And then you tell everybody, let's take the average ideal customer and start to use Post-it notes to step them through what is the user journey, the customer journey, the user journey of engaging with your organization. Everything from the first time they walk in the door, the first time they purchase, they register, sign up, etc., and start to break down every single step in that process. And what we'll take Post-it notes and we'll say, oh, this Post-it note probably it should be replaced by 3 other smaller steps, or the other way around. We can consolidate and group these 4 or 5 into one step. We map it all out. So we got to map and codify everything that you do. Project managers love this process because it's codifying their standard operating procedure, their SOP. And we need to create this SOP, a marketing SOP for your organization. And at the end of the day, what we do is we start to group things together, reduce it down so that you have these buckets that you can talk about and describe so that outsiders who haven't been inside your factory know how the machine works. And so that's the process. We map out every single tedious step. So we go down into the nitty gritty, and then we come back onto the high level, and then you create groupings that make sense. And then if you want to be fancy, you do acrostics, words that rhyme or start with the same letter. And that's all the marketing jargon. That comes later. But at the end of the day, you will see patterns that become recognizable so that you can explain, this is what we do over and over and over. And here's how to stress test this. You take your previous customers, your clients, et cetera, and you walk them through your new framework. And is that what happened? Is that what you did? Is there anything missing? Is there anything you have to add? And at some point, when we keep on stress testing, you'll come up with a describable process that actually is accurate, but also easy to understand. Does that make sense?
Makes total sense. So now and we're going to get to the third part because you mentioned 3 parts of authority. So we've talked about the why. I love the quote, you said a why that is manifesto worthy.
Yeah.
Like I picture it's been a while since I've seen this movie, but the Jerry Maguire, manifesto moment where he's up all night and he's writing the manifesto. And I think a lot of leaders listening to this have had some version of that moment, It's like, oh, what are the clues in that moment when you were so fired up about whatever that, and by the way, we're talking not just to business leaders, but we're talking about cause leaders where you were so fired up about that need, whatever it was, mental health or addressing an unreached group or whatever that is, that you are actually, Kenny, you and I were at a conference a couple of weeks ago, and Carly too, and Dallas, and I remember having a conversation with a leader who just he lit up when he started to talk about this one sort of fraction of the population that is completely being missed, and he was just, I could see his manifesto sort of beside his eyes. So as we think about this, we've got the the why, which is the manifesto worthy vision. Yes. You've got the what, which is a solution that's repeatable and you can describe, I love this, with the confidence of a math equation.
Yes.
Which, by the way, as somebody who's both mathematical, but has a really hard time locking down to just one simple concrete thing, Kenny, speak to leaders like me that are resistant to that kind of a concept. Like, why is being so concrete in the what you do so important?
Yeah, absolutely. Again, I think if you just follow this process one step at a time, it's tedious up front, but it's freeing at the end.
Tedious up front, but freeing at the end, because I can now be creative within.
Yes. Yeah. And so so what happens is when we actually produce an editorial calendar, what should you be talking about on social media? Social media has become, it was originally like, oh, this is fun. This is free. You can hire interns and not pay attention and just hope that you'll just 10x with free labor. And then it became this treadmill, this content beast you have to feed. And then it's 24/7, 365. And then it's now become this dreadmill of death, not a treadmill, a dreadmill of death that this content beast is just demanding of you. And what we do is we say, you don't need to talk about anything and everything under the sun just to be on social and to publish. We actually limit and give you fences that you should not be talking about everything. You should be talking about very few things, but you should be talking in different form factors. So at the very beginning, it's constrictive that we can't just be on repeat all the time and just talking about these few things. But at the end of the day, it's actually freeing, because it gives you more freedom to play around with the fences that we've put up for you. You can now go bonkers in that space that we've actually defined that you should be living in that box. And the result is you're now not diluting your brand. You know that anything and everything that you say all the time out there supports and contributes the bottom line of your brand narrative, right? It's like my 7th grade English teacher would be very, very happy with me, because what was she trying to always teach me is that every single sentence in that paragraph must support what? That topic sentence, right? Yeah. And if it doesn't, why is this random thing in there? Take out the red pen and mark up Kenny's paper because you have all this random stuff in there. No, every single sentence must support the topic sentence, the conclusion. And so that makes it so much more effective. You don't have to spend millions of words on it. You can speak less, more often, and actually feel more confident that you're getting your message across. So that's the whole of the story. But these guardrails at the end give you more freedom. You have more energy because you know what you're doing. You feel like you're doing something that's meaningful. Every time you open your mouth, you record a button or publish something on paper or on social.
Okay, so as we go through this is super helpful. So we're just going to camp today on this authority piece. Yeah. So it is the art of framework, not the of framework. so we're gonna finish authority here, but just for our listeners, so they're tracking. The idea is going from authority to relevance to trust.
Yes.
But just round out authority from us. So we've talked about why, having a manifesto-worthy why. We've talked about what, having a repeatable process that we can explain with the confidence of a math equation.
Yes.
Someday I hope to do that, Kenny. And so, but the last piece is the who. So who is the who?
Who's the who? Yeah, this is your testimonials. And I think most organizations get it wrong and also confuse testimonials with case studies. Case studies are completely different than testimonials. Case studies support your relevance. Testimonials support and establish your authority. Because the who, you got to introduce all these people who see you and see the credibility of what you offer as the authority on the thing that you do. They're the ones who give the social proof that says this person, this organization, this company knows their stuff. And they do that repeatable, formulaic codification process, and they do it well, and it works every single time, right? And so case studies show transformation. Testimonials deliver on the authority principle. And so you need to feature real people that point to specific pieces of your framework, right, your process, so that your authority just gets solidified. So, and here's where people get it wrong. People just share happy quotes. Oh, Dave is the best. That's not a testimonial, because the purpose of a testimonial and a case study, but a testimonial is to help the purchase decision. You know, on Amazon, you have these product reviews. There's a tiny little thumbs up and thumbs down on product reviews. The thumbs down ones are the ones that are vague and don't help you actually understand the product better. The ones that are the thumbs up, the testimonials that are the thumbs up, the reviews, are the ones that say, you know what, the reason why this product is amazing is because it does X, Y, Z, or this function, it has this one feature that just is amazing because it does X, Y, Z. It points to something in the actual product feature set, that framework, along with the accolade, right? And so those two things have to be put together. And that's how you build authority, right? It's through that micro story and not just flowery stuff.
Boost your nonprofit's donor engagement with Synergy's phone-based solutions. From P2P texting to voice broadcasting or inbound call handling to mid-level solutions, they are your donor engagement team. Visit synergydms.com. Virtuous helps nonprofits grow generosity through personal donor engagement and streamlined workflows. With their CRM, fundraising, and marketing tools, they help build trust and impact. Learn more at virtuous.org. I know you mentioned that authority is really the first part of the entire framework, but for those listening, whether a nonprofit, ministry, or for-profit, what advice would you give to them as the next step that they should take after listening to this?
Yeah, I think it's that separate the prisoner exercise. You can do this at every level, whether it's at the board level, at the team level, even volunteers. I would just start to gather your teams and groups and just go through a fun exercise. Come up with 5 questions, come up with 10 questions, have prizes, and see if people are on the same page with some of the very, very basic questions that you think everyone should know and assume that they know. And this is a great test of your own ability as a leader to communicate and rally the troops. And so it's a fun exercise, I think, most part, if you can actually execute it well. And it's not supposed to be punitive, obviously, but you can have fun with it. But I think at the end of the day, it will show you where to start, right? This is the process where everyone gets our manifesto problem. They understand the cause, but they don't understand how we do it, or they're confused, or they don't know, right? That this is the process that unfolds everything. It's almost like a Pandora's box, but for good.
This has been, Kenny, even as I think through the authority piece and, what that manifesto worthy kind of reason why is, and what the confidence of the math equation is in terms of the process, and then the who being that kind of the testimonials that provide the social proof. To me, as like a B2B type of a marketer who's used to that, it's like, oh yeah, that makes sense. One of the things I'm thinking about, how can we make this practical for your local charity leader? They're leading a food bank, or they're leading a homeless shelter, or they're doing international relief and development. Like, help just do one round of like how you might walk through the why, the what, and the who for them.
Yeah. So the why, I think, again, is very simple, right? You have to figure out for your local food bank, right? What is the problem that you're trying to solve for the community, for the people? What's the thing that empathetically just should not exist, right? That's the problem. And so you need to articulate that in no one in our city should go to bed hungry while our food kitchens and churches close their kitchens at 8 p.m. or after supper. No child should go home to, home after school to home without knowing if they'll have dinner on the table or not before homework, right? That's a manifesto worthy problem that someone can articulate. And a stranger on the street, if you went to Starbucks and said, hey, we run this organization, this is what we try to do in our city. Would you vote yes or no for we should exist in our city or not? Right? That's the type of statement that you want to make that's like no one can argue against. Right? You want to have that deeply felt, it's morally urgent, and is it something worth rallying people around? Right? Mental health. You talked about mental health. Like, the church has been silent on mental health for so long. Pastors are burning out. Members are suffering in isolation with all this, work from home stuff now. We can't heal what we don't talk about. And maybe we need to start talking about this in our leaders in our communities. Maybe that's a resource and an organization that's aimed at education on mental health issues. Right?
Yeah.
Those are the types of things I think you would talk about in terms of the why. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Makes sense. And then in the what is, okay, let's go back to that, the hunger nonprofit. What is their process of doing that? So, for example, we know that X hundred people, X hundred families, let's just say there's 300 families in our city that we know have food instability, and they don't have consistent enough funds to actually put dinner on the table every single night of the week, right? 300. And so maybe our process is we aim to partner with X number of churches, right? Maybe it's 30 churches to provide 10 meals every single week, right? On a consistent basis to start that process. So you want to talk about, it's almost like a business model and the process, and we deliver that on a weekly basis or, right? Whatever that is, you need to start to talk through a process that a stranger will look at and say, you know what, man, if you're just fully funded, you'll wipe out that problem. Done. Right? This is where, in many times, I'll get an elbow from my wife that says, don't you, that nonprofit, that ministry is doing such great work, because she understands with much more clarity than math equation that all they need is they're missing dollars or they're missing a volunteer. And then that means that's the call to action, right? And so a lot of times you'll be very specific in the call to action that says, hey, we have this program. We just need 7 more families worth of meals a week, and this will be completed. 7 more. And that takes X dollars or X volunteers or, right? That's a manifesto worthy problem. And you're showing, here's the process, here's the what to solve it that gives the confidence of the math equation. You can see how if you had that circumstance that says we have this structure, we already have the volunteer structure, the communications, the process, we have the meal kit lists, all we need is X, Y, or Z. That's showing the framework. It's showing the gap. It's putting you in that gap and saying, if you were just part of the solution, we would end this crisis. And so that's what the what is. And then the why, the who is the testimonials, right? It's either from the people that are receiving the transformation or the people that are involved in the transformation, volunteers, or the people that are donating to the transformation. And so that's where you can see, right? Like maybe it's the mayor. Maybe you get a testimonial from some neighborhoods, right? That you say, hey, look, there's some teachers maybe that says we used to have kids that came in and they couldn't pay attention to class because they were hungry. They didn't have dinner the night before. That's just the practical reality of teaching in today's community. That was 5 years ago. Ever since Dave's nonprofit came on board, that hasn't been the case. Every student's, in class, happy, engaged, studying, advancing, and we're seeing everybody flourishing. You want testimonials to actually show up. So anyway, that's just a back of napkin way to
super helpful. Thank you for making that practical. I think for regardless of who you are, it is practical, but I think that those examples are super helpful. So we've got authority, which is all around establishing, that why. Yeah. And I still love that manifesto worthy why. That's that thing that lights you up. It's not the word salad thing with all the many syllables.
Bingo. No way, man.
No buzzword bingo? Oh, okay. No, it's the thing you can actually get fired up about, and I love that. It cuts through a lot of the clarity. Then you've got, the what, and being able to describe that repeatable process with that confidence of a math equation, and then the who being those testimonials that ultimately provide that sort of social proof. So we have hit essentially 1/3 of the full framework. So for folks that are interested in learning the full art of engagement framework, Kenny, and checking for you, we always like to end our episodes, by the way, with a round of lightning questions. We're going to get to that in a moment.
Sure.
But I want, for anybody who wants to dive deeper into that framework, where should they go?
You can go to our website, artofengagement.org. There's a bunch of articles there. You can reach out. We can have a call. I'm seen teaching this framework in many places, both online and offline. But yeah, artofengagement.org is probably the best place to start.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you, Kenny. This is super helpful. I feel like we've just scratched the surface, but one of the things I've appreciated about you is we've gotten to know each other a little bit better over the last few years is just one, you have a breadth of experience, and you go from the Columbia MBA to the MDiv, right? And it's like so cool how just seeing the common thread for you and how you've been able to help organizations, and just appreciate you. Thanks for spending time with us today. Are you ready for a lightning round?
Let's do it.
All right. There's about 6 or 7 questions. So just the first thing that comes to mind. The first one is, if you could instantly become an expert in any skill, what would it be?
Right now, it's golf. Golf is one of those sports where you pay to get frustrated every single time. Let's reverse that trend.
Mini golf.
Mini golf.
Mini golf. I'm
Yeah,
up for
yeah.
That
that.
might be the answer.
Yeah. All right. Number 2, what's your guilty pleasure TV show or movie?
Right now, it's TikTok. TikTok is one of those things that everyone feels it's a little sketchy, off limit. But man, you can actually learn about any specific topic that you want. So almost like before you go to Google or YouTube, I'm actually going to TikTok to learn bite-sized pieces on any topic, any book, any author. It's really interesting. Even business, you would not think it, but even business topics, TikTok has been very, very helpful.
As like a search query, I'm curious. I mean, I've heard, not to date you, but younger generations do tend to start their searches these days on the old TikTok. So just kind of a query thing.
Yeah, you'd be surprised at how the algorithm there works. The reason why TikTok's all the rage is the algorithm works. And so you can actually train it just by searching for things manually, clicking on a couple things. So let's go back to my golf thing, right? My golf score, I think, has improved at least 6-7 strokes because of TikTok. So if I wanted to learn about golf, search for golf stuff, start clicking on a bunch of golf stuff, and see how your algorithm immediately helps you find more and discover more golf stuff. If I wanted to change direction and go down the path of, conferences and networking tips, you can start to search and click on that kind of stuff, and your feed and algorithm will respond accordingly. It's amazing how different it is from Facebook and all these other feeds where their job is just to frustrate you and extract all the money out of you. And TikTok here is, it's a democratized network where it's all meritocracy, right? The value of the content, not your followers, is what dictates the algorithm. So anyway, TikTok has been a great education resource.
Dave, you just dated yourself by saying the old TikTok. So
I know. Dang it. I walked right into that one.
We need a clip of that one on repeat.
Yeah, on TikTok. Okay, if you could donate $1 million to any cause, what would it be?
To any cause, I would say right now, I think it's education at the primary level. I think our education system is broken in this country, and a lot of it is dictated by the early years. I think as a parent and as a student, the primary education years is the most important problem right now. By the time you're middle school, high school, beyond, you fall behind. This is why our society right now is falling apart in a way to be the most reductionistic that we can. Talk about reductionistic sound bites on podcasts. But I think investing in early education is something that I would want to personally work on.
Yeah, that's a great answer. What is the most random thing on your bucket list?
The most random thing on my bucket list. I don't know. There's so many things I want to do, Carly. So many things I want to do in life. I want to go to Israel. I don't know if that's random. I have not, as a person of faith and as a Christian, I have not been able to go yet. And I think that would be transformative. Seeing things in person and seeing the narrative that we read in the Bible in person, I think would be personally transformative to me. That's
on my bucket list too.
Yeah.
So I hear you. What is a surprising fact about you that most people wouldn't guess?
I'm shy. If you look at my personality assessments, like MBTI, etc., there's an I in there. Most people don't see that, and that's probably shocking to a lot of people.
And lastly, if you could switch lives with anyone for a day, who would it be?
Who would it be? Oh, that's a good one. Dead or alive? Which one?
Alive.
Alive? I know this is going to be a controversial one, Carly. Right now, I think taking us out of the current news cycle, it would probably be either Bill Gates, Elon Musk, or even Zuckerberg. One of those big tech leaders,
tech titans, yeah.
one of those tech titans, because I think their point of view of how they're seeing society and their ability to tap resources that you and I typically probably do not even see. And I would maybe I would skew it. Now I'm talking about it. Maybe it's skewed to the leaders of either Perplexity or Open AI. One of the AI titans is probably where I would want to be.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Talk about influential, but also to your point, yeah, just the visibility.
Crystal ball, what's coming down the pike. I think that would be very interesting. I think we are in the midst of a major shift in our culture and society. If we look at what's happening in our world, especially with AI and technology, there's if you look at a graph, there's a shape of the graph. There's a point where the graph changes the shape of the curve. That's called an inflection point, if you recall geometry. And that dot on that little graph, the change in shape of the curve, where it goes from left to up to down, left, right, that change in the curve is where we are. We're living inside. If we blow up that dot 100 million times in magnifying glass, we're inside that dot right now. We're about to change direction rapidly and radically with our society. And so being able to see what's on the other side of that inflection point would be super interesting to me.
Living in the dot.
Living in the dot.
Living in the dot. Well, thank you, Kenny. Thanks again for taking the time with us. And for our listeners, I hope you learned something new today. I hope you're intrigued, you're challenged. And until next time. We want to thank all of our sponsors for supporting Season 6 of the Purpose and Profit podcast, including Virtuous, Faith Search Partners, Dickerson Baker, Share, Synergy, Avid, and Imago Consulting. For more episodes of Purpose and Profit, visit www.purposeandprofitpodcast.com or wherever you get your podcasts. Be sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode, and we'd love it if you would rate the show and write us a review. Your feedback is valuable to us. Follow the show on LinkedIn, YouTube, and Instagram. You can also sign up for our email newsletter to get the latest updates. Thanks for listening.